Okay, well, the question is, how do we communicate with Mother Earth?
Well, not so much how do we communicate, but I can tell you for myself, I feel disconnected from the earth. I can walk in the forest. Oh yes, this is very beautiful. I can see the animals, I can see the birds, but I'm seeing this like at a distance, okay? Like I'm here and they're there. And that, I believe, is not the way that life works. And so I want to get to the point, back to the point where I'm one with all of this. So how do we do that? And not just for me, but for the other few hundreds of millions of people who need to do that?
Yeah. Well, you know that I work with the Wisdom Weavers of the World, which is a collection of elders from throughout the world. And they say that, we need to go to the heart from the, right now our collective consciousness and our own individual consciousness is coming from the mind. And the mind is telling the heart what to do. So when traditionally the heart would tell the mind what to do, and the mind's job is to implement that which your heart is telling you. Now, going to the heart is essential to indigenous people to get in touch with, commune, and communicate with Mother Earth. And they're saying that, most of the world's population has forgotten how to do that. And that, of course, what we need to do, first of all, is understand that the mind is the monkey mind, as the Tibetans would call it. And it goes in every which direction, but we rely on that to direct us logically and rationally on what we need to do. But the issue is not logical or rational, it's transrational. And that we need to get to the point where we can hear our hearts, because the mind is so active, we don't have the opportunity to hear our hearts. And our hearts are the way that we connect with Mother Earth. And so that is asking a big thing of the human race, because we jump to the mind, and when we jump to the mind, we separate it from our hearts, and we left the proverbial moment. And so everybody's into planning out of really basically fear, and planning, how am I going to survive today? And all these kinds of things that come with planning because of fear. And to get to resolving what that basic root cause of going to the mind is, requires us to really go back to and revisit those wounds, the traumas, if you will, that have been passed down from generation to generation until it's still here with us today. And so we need to, I always urge people, don't do this alone. You can do some of it alone, but for the bulk of the work, you need to have at least a friend or a supporter that understands what you're trying to do and supports you in that process. Because emotionally, it means going back to those things that traumatize you, starting from childhood. And we have received, one woman one time came to me and said, I grew up in an alcoholic family, And I wanted to make sure that my kids don't grow up the way I did. So she didn't drink. And she said, but my son, who was 12 years old at the time, took to cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what I did with that, how I allowed that to happen. And I said, well, you know, how many cups of coffee do you drink a day? He said about 20.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, how many hours a day do you watch TV? Well, about 17 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and so on and so forth. Do you smoke cigarettes? He says, yeah. How much do you smoke? Well, she smokes 2 packs a day. I said, okay, there you go. Is that this trauma is transferred from generation to generation, that it's a behavior that is passed on to the next generation. And that behavior is an addictive behavior. And I always say that an addiction is nothing but a strategy to escape the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to get to understand ourselves before we can help others. The elders say we cannot offer the world that which we do not have. And so if we want to heal, we need to heal others. You cannot help your son unless you are able to help yourself. And that when you change and you heal backwards and forward, generations forward, generations backwards, and your generation. And so that's what's at first required. Now, when you're in the heart, that's where we understand the divine comes in. Mm-hmm. That for those who follow a religious Christian tradition, for example, we don't seem to understand that God can only be found in the present moment. Mm-hmm. That when we're in the past, and we're in the past through guilt, shame, remorse, anger, rage, jealousy, and all these things that still live with us here today, or fear, which is projection in the future of something that hasn't happened yet, every place except the proverbial now. Mm-hmm. And so when we're out of the present moment, we don't communicate or connect with anything that is divine in its deepest way. And so when I am in the heart, I can feel, for example, animals that would like, I started at 6 years old when I went out with the 5 or 6 hunters on my island of St. Paul, where I was born and raised. And we would go hunting for sea lion, stellar sea lion. And we hunt from shore to water, because of the months that we hunt, the sea lions find the air colder than the water. So they stay in the water, and it's too rough for us to use our craft, our boats. Mm-hmm. And so we use high-powered rifles. And we would go out early in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning when the sun is first rising. And sometimes we would wait an entire day for a sea lion to appear. And I noticed, I was 6 years old when I first experienced this. By the time 12 o'clock noon shows up, I'm getting daydreamy and sleepy, and I'm not paying attention. But the men never did. Mm-hmm. Even though they were not active, they weren't talking very much. They were just focused on getting a sea lion. And then someone would all of a sudden say, "Kawakako, sea lion coming." Mm-hmm. And instantly, and I mean instantly, all the men would look at one spot in the ocean. Now I'm on an island, there's 180 degrees of water, and the sea lion could be anywhere, but they looked at one spot. And I said, well, what, I'm looking at the spot and I don't see a sea lion, but yet they're looking. And so I'm convinced that there's a sea lion there. somewhere. And sure enough, 5 to 10 minutes later, a sea lion would pop up exactly where they're looking. And I wondered, wow, that must be magical. How do they do that? And what they were doing was something that I learned from the birds, the seabirds that landed on the Peril Islands and breed. That these birds, I used to watch the seabirds at 6 years old, and because I loved how vibrant they were. And so they would fly within inches of me underneath the cliffs. And they breed on cliff ledges. And there would be like, St. Paul Island and the Pribilof Islands in the Bering Sea was used to be one of the top 5 bird colonies in North America. We had over 2 million seabirds. And so underneath one cliff would be maybe 10,000 seabirds. And they would just be of all kinds of species, flying at different speeds, different heights, different directions, all in front of the cliff. Because what they like to do early in the morning is circle around when they wake up and fly, waiting to collect members of their species before they go out foraging. And so I would watch the chaos, the apparent chaos that is there, but I noticed that the birds never even clipped a wing. Mm-hmm. And somehow they knew. And I said, well, at 6 years old, I want to be a seabird. So I said, what's the difference between a seabird and a human? And I thought, well, birds don't think, they just are. Mm-hmm. They're just I didn't have the name for it at the time. They're just a field of awareness. Mm-hmm. And so I said, I want to be a seabird. And so I focused on not thinking for hours. And as I sat underneath the cliff, and after about 2 months of doing this, I didn't have a single word coming through my brain. Not a single word. You're just field of awareness, just like the seabird. And I practiced that after I saw this with the men out hunting, and I could feel the sea lion before it appeared. And I knew exactly where it was. Then I apply this to fishing, where we subsistence fish for halibut, hook, line, and sinker. And I could tell you when the halibut is coming towards the line. I can tell you once it's hooked, if it's hooked by the lip or the jaw or the side of the body. And I can tell you whether or not it's male or female. I can tell you what size it is, a 3 foot, 4 foot, 5 foot halibut. I can tell you how it's going to fight on the way up. All of these are essential information that the subsistence fishermen need in order to be successful. And when I practiced that with the men out hunting, that was the result. And so I realized that there's some part of us that we haven't tapped yet. And that, I understand how the world gets to the point where they don't know how to do that, because when I was raised as a child, the adult's responsibility was to create the space for me to learn. And my job was to watch, listen, and learn. And I grew up not asking a single question. And the genius of that is that you can expand out to the maximum of your capability without the interference of an adult. And today we tell the child what to do, how to do it. We define everything. And so, we've lost that personal control over how we learn. And so we're schooled from the get-go, from parents, We have to obey the parent. We have to do what the parent says, and we have to listen to the parent, educate us. And then we go to school, and then school reinforces it until you get to a postdoctorate degree. It's all the same thing, that we have given away our personal authority. And in doing that, we have given away a part of ourselves, and including the understanding that there is magic in who we are as human beings.
Mm.
You know, we have far more capabilities than we realize.